In this lecture, we are going to learn about the findIndex method in JavaScript. The findIndex method is also an array method. So the findIndex method, it also iterates over an array and returns the index of the first matching element from the array that satisfies a given condition. FindIndex method is very similar to find method. The only difference is find method returns the element itself, but the findIndex method, it returns the index of the matching element. Let's try to understand it with an example. So in the last lecture, we learned about find method. The find method returns the first matching element from an array which satisfies a given condition. On the other hand, the findIndex method will return the index of the first matching element in the array which satisfies the given condition. So here let me copy this code. Okay, let me paste it here and let me remove this console.log statement from here. So this find method, it is going to return us the first matching element from this numbers array which satisfies this condition. If I save the changes, you will see that the first element in this numbers array which satisfies this condition is this value 12. This 12 is greater than 10. So that has been returned here. But what findIndex method does is, instead of returning the element, it returns the index of the first matching element. So in this case, it is going to return the index of this element 12 because this element is the first matching element in this numbers array. So if I save the changes, you will see that 1 is returned because the index of the first matching element in this numbers array which satisfies this condition is this element 12 and its index is 1. So this is the difference between find method and findIndex method. And just like find method, the findIndex method also takes three optional parameters. The first parameter will be the current element on which it is looping over. The second parameter will be the index of the current element. And the third parameter will be the original array on which the findIndex method is looping over. And all these three parameters are optional. Also, you can name these parameters anything, but the order in which you specify them, that is important because the first parameter will always be assigned with the current element on which the findIndex method is looping over. The second parameter will always be assigned with the index of the current element, and this ARR parameter, basically the third parameter, will always be assigned with the original array on which the findIndex method is looping over. So what you name these parameters, that is not important, but the order in which you specify these parameters, that is important. One more thing which you need to remember about findIndex method is, once the findIndex method has found the first matching element, it will return the index of that first matching element and it will stop iterating over the array. So for example, here, if I go ahead and if I log the current element, and let me comment this console.log statement here. If I save the changes, you will see that this findIndex method only looped over first element and second element. Since the second element satisfied this condition, the findIndex method returned the index of that second element and then it stopped iterating over the array. So this is also important to understand. So I hope now you understand the use of findIndex method. FindIndex method returns the index of the first matching element which satisfies a given condition, which we write in the body of the callback function which we are passing to this findIndex method. Now let's also see another example. So let's say we also want to find the index of that user object whose ID is equal to ID2. So let me scroll up. So here we have already written that logic using find method. The difference is find method will return us the user object itself. So let me comment this code. Okay, if I save the changes, you will see that the find method is returning us the user object itself. But let's say our requirement is to get the index of that user object. Instead of getting the user object itself, we want to get the index of the user whose ID is equal to 2. So for that, we can again use findIndex method. it should be find index method. And if I save the changes, it should return us 1 because the user object with id 2, it is present at index 1 in this users array. If I change it to 3, in that case, it should return us the index of that user whose ID is 3. In this case, the index of this user object. And the index of this user object is 2 because it is the third element in this users array. So since index starts from 0, the index of this third element will be 2. If I save the changes, you will see 2 has been returned. So this is the user find index method. Now, some of you might ask, what is the difference between find index method and index of method? Well, the index of method returns the index of an element by passing the element itself. So for example, if I want to find the index of, let's say, this value 8, what I'll do is on the numbers array, I'll call the index of method, and to that I'll pass 8. So if in this array we have multiple elements where the value is 8, the index of will return us the index of first element whose value is 8. If I save the changes, it is going to return us the index of this value. Let me actually go ahead and let me log it. So let me create a variable. Let me call it as index. And let's go ahead and let's log that index. Okay. So you see, it is returning us the index of this element, the first matching element by its value. But when we use find index method, there we do not specify the value itself. Instead, we specify a condition. And the first element which satisfies that condition, that is returned by the find index method. The index of method, it returns the index of the element by its value, the index of the first matching element by its value. But the find index method, it returns the index of the first matching element which satisfies a given condition. Here we are not specifying the value of the element. Instead, we are specifying a condition, and whichever first element satisfies this condition, that will be returned by this find index method. I hope you got the difference. This is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.